today's session, our session is about expanding access to critical thinking in the context of research mentorship. My name is Raja Gupta. I'm a professor of astronomy and astrophysics at the University of California, Santa Cruz. I really want you to get the impression that we're going to be talking about astronomy and astrophysics. We're going to be talking about critical thinking as seen through the lens pretty much any academic subject, any subject. So I will, just with this very brief introduction to our session, I'm going to open it up to our three panelists from three different parts of the world. We have in my home connecting from Hawaii today, on the mainland.
I'm in Honolulu right now.
Honolulu, okay. So 15.5 hour time difference, if I remember correctly, between Amber and here, 15.5. Now we have Maddie Bloom. Maddie Bloom is in Santa Cruz right now. We're going to be introducing yourself, so I won't get too much away. And Maddie's in Santa Cruz, 12.5 hour time difference with India. Third panelist, last but not the least, certainly is Randall Husseini, who is in the Republic of Kosovo, and will be speaking from there. So with that, I'll stop my screen share, and I will hand it over to Amber to introduce her work in expanding access to critical thinking in the context of research mentorship. So please take it away, Amber. I'm going to stop my screen share if I can. There we go. Take it away, Amber.
Aloha, everyone. My name is Amber Mai Hong. I just prepared a couple of quick slides. I'm an avionics engineer and program manager at the Hawaii Spaceflight Lab. Additionally, I am the communications director for the nonprofit Ohana Kila Hoku. So this is just a little bit of background about me. I build small satellites, and I've been doing outreach for the past 16 years. I was going to show you my students, but I'm not sure why this is not going. Okay, here we go. So I do interact with a lot of student teams, everywhere from middle school all the way up through undergraduates, graduates, and staff and faculty members. And so I've had the joys and frustrations of leading various teams, and that's one of the things that really brings me joy in my job. Additionally, like I said, I am the communications director for Ohana Kila Hoku. We are a Native Hawaiian nonprofit organization that supports space science and astronomy in Hawaii. Our goal is to bring together traditional knowledge as well as high-tech, modern or Western knowledge in the astronomy and space science fields. As I shared, I am an avionics engineer, so trying to bring in that avionics aspect as well as appreciating and learning the traditional ways of Hawaii.
I'm going to add a quick thing to that, Amber, if I may. The word Ohana means family, right? And Hawaiian, if you wanted to break down Ohana Kila Hoku for a moment, that would be amazing.
Yes, so Ohana Kila Hoku means family of sky watchers. So essentially what we're doing is we're observing the sky and all of the things under it.
And the other thing I wanted to mention very briefly is Ohana Kila Hoku has been a partner of an initiative called Shadow the Scientists. I'll say a brief word about Shadow the Scientists later, but we can come back to that and we can talk about that with the group here. Amber, thank you. Maggie, I'm going to bounce it to you next.
Hi, everyone. I can't possibly follow such beautiful slides as Amber had, so I'll just chat with you for a second. My name is Madeline Baroom. I'm a fourth-year PhD candidate at University of California, Santa Cruz. I am an astronomer, which means I get to work in one of the sciences that makes people very excited and makes my job of engaging students very easy. It also ties in so nicely with my own background. I'm a member of the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma, which is the removed home of the indigenous people of the southeastern, US. And I try to incorporate that into my work, both as an astronomer and when I'm reaching out to students, both as a mentor and in an outreach context. And that's predominantly using a lens called two-eyed seeing, which is a Mi'kmaq concept, the Mi'kmaq being a people from up near the border of Canada. And an elder from that group explains this concept as using one eye to look with ways of indigenous knowing and using the other eye to look with ways of Western knowing. That's science as we teach it in the classroom so often, and combining the both for the benefit of both. And so many students are asked to leave behind their identities at the door when they come into a classroom, especially a science classroom. And so I am trying to bring the whole student into that because we know students learn better in that case and also are able to contribute more wholly by recognizing the ways in which we all have practiced science for thousands of years, even if it didn't look like how it looks in a textbook.
I wanted to add a little bit about my connection to Maddie. Maddie and I are in the same department at UC Santa Cruz, so a little bit of nepotism here, of course, going on. But more than that, Maddie and I have been working on a program that is called Python and Research. Now, most of the audience in this room need no introduction to the word PR, P-Y-A-R. It means love. If you ever did a web map of any movie, the biggest word would be PR. We use that acronym. PYAR stands for Python and Research. And Matt's been one of the instructors for Python and Research. It's an online, free online tutorial. And I'll say a little bit more about that, but Manny's been involved in a lot. You had a Native Skies Night at Lake Observatory a few weeks ago. And I got to see Maddie in action, engaging young people in the Bay Area in the wonders of astronomy using our observatory there. We'll come back to both of you. I'm going to hand it over to Fran next. Fran, you're welcome to share slides.
Thank you, Raja. Hello, everybody. I am Pranvera Husseini from the Republic of Kosovo, and I put a map for everybody in case someone hasn't heard of my country, which is very tiny here in the Balkans Peninsula. I'm actually a PhD student at University of California in the Planetary Science Department, and I am mostly focused in studying hydrated asteroids and meteorites and comets. And I try to link all of these together through light and spectroscopy, which is really fun. But of course, all this passion has, for me, started when I was a very young kid back here in my home country, which I'm actually here right now visiting. I just arrived last night and it's like 5 a.m. here. I'm very jet lagged and very happy about being part of this. So I started doing or loving science and doing some outreach activities to the point where in Kosovo, things didn't develop as greatly as in other countries, given that Kosovo was involved in the Yugoslavian conflict, and it was a very war-torn country 20 years ago. I was only 5 years old when I experienced the war, and it was very terrible, and that destroyed everything, including economy and education and everything. So we had to start from scratch in every field, and astronomy was something that I always loved. It was part of my life. It's like my true love, and I always wanted to get involved with it, but being from Kosovo, for me, it was not very easy to be part of something like that because our country did not offer any programs or doesn't have any observatories. We don't have telescopes. So this was one of the reasons why I founded the Astronomy Outreach of Kosovo program in 2015, which now has become the largest astronomy outreach program in Eastern Europe. And we reach about 25,000 people every year with our outreach activities. And what we try to do mostly is get our equipment and get out there and just engage with the public and try to get young kids interested to explore the skies, to give them an access to the sky, because we all share the same sky, but not everybody has the access to see what's out there. And these are just small things that we can actually do. And I just placed some photos here for you to see from some of our activities. And what you can see in most of these is that we always have these huge lines, which tells you that there's so many kids and people interested to look through our telescopes. And we show them the moon, the planets, the sun, and galaxies and objects, and we get them excited. And I think this is the most important part, that we need to get people excited about STEM and science fields so that in the future we'll have more people contributing and joining research projects and universities. So I'm just gonna go quickly here, and these are some of my favorite photos from our activities. These are, for instance, some of the photos of the sun, what we show to the people with our telescopes. I mean, it's pretty exciting to be able to see explosions happening in current time in the sun and just seeing it from a very amateur telescope. And that's something I really like, except for my PhD research, which is something I'm trying to get my career out of and become a professional. My favorite thing is about going out there and getting the public excited about science and communicating it. And that to me is very important. And I'm trying to do that as much as I can, not only here in Kosovo, but expanding all over the world. Thank you very much. And I hope you have any questions. Feel free to ask.
Ron, you have a couple more slides, I see, of images. I have been very fortunate to partner with Pran over the years. And one of the latest collaborations we had involved a program that we run at Santa Cruz over the summer, something called the Science Internship Program. And thanks to this collaboration with Astronomy Outreach of Kosovo, a collaboration which started through something called Shadow the Scientists. Talk about that in just a moment. That led to 4 students from Kosovo coming to Santa Cruz for 8 weeks. In fact, the students just got back home after the end of our summer program. Anand and I helped run this program on the Santa Cruz campus. So there's been these beautiful points of intersection, which is, of course, why I thought of Amber, Maddie, and Pran when it came to a session on expanding access to critical thinking. I'm going to share a couple more slides, and I'm going to encourage everyone in the room to start thinking about what this title, Expanding Access to Critical Thinking, what that means to you. If you want to come up with a question, I know there are microphones around the room. In a few minutes, I want to talk a little bit about how I'm connected to engaging young people in critical thinking. I'll take just a couple of slides to do that, and then we'll open it up to the room. And Amber, Maddie, and Brian, please chime in at any point, just like I've been interrupting each of your narratives. Please do the same to me. All right. Just a moment here. Too many computers.
I did want to build off what Pran was saying about how it's so exciting for students and the community to be able to look through a telescope. It's something that we see at our events all the time when we do community stargazing or Ohana stargazing nights.
So,
I should say that what Raja shared accidentally on the screen there is actually a great example of what astronomy looks like behind the scenes. And
this
so
you
looking
mean?
through the telescope is much more exciting and much more engaging, but it also is not necessarily a whole picture of what it means to be an astronomer. And so something Raja has been doing is a program called Shadow the Scientist, where students are able to log on to Zoom and watch astronomers as they work, unfiltered, and so they get full access to a field that has otherwise been always done in the secret of the dead of night, something that wasn't visible and apparent. And so visibility and access, not just to amazing pictures that inspire, but also to the real astronomy that goes on behind the scenes, to the real scientists and real scientists, is really important for demonstrating what a job entails, demonstrating that students can do it, because if they can't see it, they can't be it.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. I think science over decades has been portrayed, especially to the younger generation, that it's something difficult and only you have to be a professional astronomer to be able to make discoveries and have access to the skies. And a lot of young people, especially, are scared somehow to pursue science field because they have this impression that it's very difficult and they don't feel very confident. But that's why we're here, because we're trying to break it down from like being very professional, looking like what we're seeing in the screen that will just overwhelm you. We're trying to break that down and make it fun, and that's the most important thing. Once you make it fun, you're gonna get them hooked into science, and that's how it all starts. And Raja, you've been doing an amazing job with Shadow the Scientist, because I was so excited to invite everybody to like, hey, come and see how the astronomers are studying galaxies from Keck telescope. That's not something you get to have an opportunity every day. And for public to have such an opportunity is just incredible. And then for professional astronomers to just communicate and show what they're doing, I think that's really, really important. And that's awesome.
You guys are amazing. The checks in the mail. This is what my life really looks like. It's 50 tabs. That's 100 tabs. That's what my life. I wish my life looked like this, but it actually looks like this instead. Anyway, I'll say a few more. Thank you. Really, that's very kind of you to say, all of you. And I just want to say that my day job, or maybe this is my night job, is to be an astronomer. And I'm a professor of astronomy and astrophysics at UC Santa Cruz, an astronomer at UC Observatories. I wanted to give a shout out to Google, Google's headquarters in Mountain View, because they've been big supporters of the outreach work that's at the center of this session. Thanks to their encouragement, thanks to their support, we really started to, our team, a small team, started to think about working towards creating equity in science, technology, engineering, art, and math. And that's what we're trying to get to. That's the light at the end of our tunnel. And the method that we're using to get there is to engage young people in critical thinking in the context of open-ended research, while they're being closely mentored by bright young people like Plan, Maddie, Amber, who are at the top of their research game, who are at the top of their field. Best logo looks something like this. Creating equity in STEAM. There's 3 equal designs in the logo, if you're looking. But it's really an umbrella of programs. Santa Cruz is a self-town, so the crest represents the shape of a wave appropriately. And a small team. Abby Davis is based in the UK. Anand and I are based in the area. Anand, please put up your hand. He's one of the 6 people whose names are on this. Lindsay Loveland is based in Southern California. Jamaica Marshall is based in Hawaii. And Sarah Schneider is based in Santa Cruz as well. What we're trying to do is make it less scary, exactly as Brian, Amber, and Maddie have described. If we want a child to swim in the ocean, we have to first show them a swimming pool. And we have to first allow them to dip their toes in the water and figure out if the water temperature feels right. If the water temperature feels right, the next question they will ask is, who's in the water already? Are they having fun? Do they look like they're welcoming me into the pool? And it's the equivalent of that we're trying to do through this program called Shadow the Scientist. It's allowing young people around the world and educators to dip their toes in the water of scientific research or academic research. Something called Shadow the Scientist. I'll describe it in a bit more detail. It's something that started as a COVID-19 adaptation, like so many things in our lives. You know, the phrase social distancing wasn't around before 2020. It's a new concept. Similarly, the term pajama observing was not around before 2020. I'll tell you what that is. It means you can still be in your pajamas. You don't need to get into your street clothes to use the world's most powerful telescope. That's literally what it means. Pajama mode observing. I'm not making up that name. That's an actual term that came to be in use in the summer of 2020. You all knew what happened in the spring of 2020. Everything shut down. Telescopes, observatories shut down. The telescopes that you see in these two pictures, the one on the upper left is a pair of telescopes on Mauna Kea, on the big island of Hawaii, close to where Amber is. And the telescope in the lower right is in the hills east of the city of San Jose in California. And that's Lick Observatory, the oldest telescope there, dates back to 1888. These two telescopes and many others like it were shut down from March to June. When they reopened, they said we can operate telescopes. The people who are already on the mountaintop, they will become a COVID bubble. Again, a new COVID-19 term, a COVID bubble. But no one else can come up to the mountain. You can't go to the university. You can use the telescope from home. So they gave us software that we could use on our laptops to control telescopes that were halfway around the world. Imagine that. This is the power of technology, right? I was sitting on my laptop, sitting in my living room on the sofa with my laptop and controlling a telescope in Chile, in Hawaii, on the mountaintop in California without going there. And we said, this is an opportunity. Can you still hear me? Yeah, okay. We said this is an opportunity. If we can do this sitting at home, so can children and educators around the world. They don't have to leave their classrooms. They don't have to leave their country. They get on a Zoom call and they are as connected to the telescope as anyone. So this went on for a couple of years. It's 2023 now. We started this in the summer of 2020. Jump mode observing. In fact, a few weeks ago, our research team was using the Keck-2 10-meter telescope, 10 meters. The mirror of the telescope is about the size of the seating area of this room, just to give you a sense of a telescope. This is one of the world's most powerful telescopes. It's on a mountaintop. A spectrograph is what spreads the light into the colors of the rainbow. We were using it to study an exotic class of galaxies called dwarf elliptical galaxies in the astronomically nearby, I say nearby in quotes, Virgo cluster, 50 million light years away, 50 million. And we were also discovering very distant stars in our own galaxy, a class of stars called Ara-Lyrae. They're about 1 million light years away, about the most distant stars known in our own galaxy. But while we were doing this, we had children connect to us from different parts of the world. We had a couple of school groups from Addis Ababa in Ethiopia connect to us. And the session was run in English and Amharic. A week before that, we had a group of students collect from Palestine and Israel. And that time the session was in 3 languages. The scientists were talking in English. The narrator would pick up what they said in English, pass it along to their teachers in the classroom, and they would translate to both Hebrew and Arabic. So it was English, Hebrew, Arabic run at the same time. We run sessions in Hindi and English in a small village in Kundru in Kashmir. We've run a session in Gujarati and English for children from all over the state of Gujarat, but really Gujarati-speaking kids all over the world. This will give you a sense of what Shadow the Scientist looks like. This is what we call Shadow the Scientist. It's taking the research that researchers do and making that a spectator sport. right? We have children watch people do science so they can interact with the people who are doing science. And it's really the people, the scientists in this who are key. That human connection is what is key. This is what our service footprint has been so far. We've been working, I think Mary came out when we were working with the Amamutsan Tribal Band. This is a group whose stolen land, the UC Santa Cruz campus is built on. Our American Indian Resource Center at the University of California, Santa Cruz is amazing. Mary, thank you for connecting me to them. They in turn have connected me to so many of the organizations you see here, including ACES, American Indian Science and Engineering Society. I have a secret connection to the Cherokee Nation through two marriages. My wife's niece is married to a Cherokee artist. So he's married into the family, I'm married into the family. That's our connection to, we have 3 students from the Cherokee Nation in SIP this summer. Amber, you've been a big part of our connection to Hawaii, of course, you and Sam and Heather and Makana. We will be going to the National American Indian Science and Engineering Fair in, I guess it's in Portland this year or Spokane this year. There's another group called SIP, Science Society of Indigenous Physicists. It makes me really mad. No, it doesn't. It doesn't make me mad, but there's 2 organizations called SIP. SACNIS is another conference, organization or conference that we're going to. We have outreach partners in many states in the United States. Those 2-digit codes, Alabama, Arizona, Colorado, Washington, D.C., Hawaii, and so on. I wouldn't read all of them. We're working in various countries in Africa, in South Asia and Southeast Asia, in Latin America, Middle East, Eastern Europe. This is just through Shout of the Scientists. Once a child says, yes, this is fun, those kids are having fun in the water. What do I need to do to get in the water? Well, you need to learn to swim. We teach the most important technical skill in science today, which is computer programming. We teach Python in the context of research. My colleagues teach R, programming language, in the context of computational biology. So an example of what we do. This is one of my PhD students, Claire Dorman, her paper from 2015, 8 years old. We take a paper like this, we take the plots in the paper, and what Claire did very carefully is break the computer code that generated these plots, remove key lines from it. And students have to put that back in, have to understand enough programming to translate from English to Python or English to R to restore the code back to being able to make these plots. These are actual plots from a paper. So we take certain lines of well-commented computer code, we strategically remove them. Participants have to restore these lines. We've had well over 1,500 students by now. We run this as 2-3 hour sessions. We run it a few times a year. Students learn to code in Python. They may not care about astronomy or computational biology, but they learn to code in Python. It's an important technical skill. Claire started this, Emily, another PhD student, started this forward, and Amanda, an even more recent PhD student, have had a lot of intellectual input into Python and research. Maddie's been involved and many others have been involved as well. Finally, if you like all this, you learn to swim. You do the equivalent of now going out on a boat and jumping into the ocean now that you know how to swim. And we run a program called the Science Internship Program. It's an 8-week program for high school students only. This one is for high school students only. It's a fee-based program, but a third of our students are on 100% scholarships. We paid for students to come from abroad to Santa Cruz, paid their academic tuition, paid for housing and meals, all on the basis of financial need. If the student demonstrates financial need, we cover their expenses. After you do this, you can be part of something called the Global Sphere Network, which is STEM programs for high schoolers engaging in research early. If any of you engage high school students in research, you can become a part of Sphere. We have an alumni buddies program and a peer mentoring program. We track the trajectories of our alumni. We have teachers taking part in SIP. SIP is the Science Internship Program. We have a peer-to-peer college and career network. And we have community college students and college students taking part in SIP. And with that, I'll stop my screen share. I've been talking for what feels like ever. How are we doing on time? We're at 9:20. We have close to a half hour. The session goes till 9:45. I know we started a little late. We have a wonderful audience gathered in the room. But let me, while we are waiting for any input from the audience, again, my question to all of you is, when you think of the title of this session, which is Expanding Access to Critical Thinking Through Research Mentoring, think of what that means to you. If that is a confusing phrase, please speak up. What can we clarify about? What is that? I'm curious to know what that means to you. But while we're waiting for questions from the audience, I'm going to bounce it back to our panelists to see if you want to correct any of the grave mistakes I've made in my presentation. So take it away, you three.
I guess I can chime in with sort of an evolution of the idea of access. So access is, yes, getting people into the pool, showing them that there are people like them swimming in there, getting them into the ocean. But you have to be able to support people to stay there. So retention is a very important part of access. And so even if you get someone into the pool and ocean, you taught them how to swim, if everyone like them is leaving, if they are not able to bring themselves to this. I talked about their whole self, meaning they're not allowed to bring their floaties. They're not allowed to, or they're shamed for what kind of swimsuit that they're going to wear into the ocean. That sort of thing is what encompasses identity. And so serving a student's entire identity is really important for retention. And a huge part of that comes from recognizing that we all have very, very different experiences and background, not just in terms of the academic background we have, but also in terms of how we view and think about research, and that most people are told that that is in fact a detriment when it can be a strength. And so acknowledging when you are bringing someone into a research context, explicitly acknowledging their strengths, saying, you solve that problem in a different way, or you conceptualized of this in a different way than I would have. That's very valuable. Thank you for bringing that to the table. It validates a more creative problem-solving approach that is ultimately going to enrich research.
Yeah, to add on to that, part of the reason that we have a mentorship program within Ohana Hoku is because of that retention. We find that it's one thing to have an event where you bring community members, students out and really engage them in the science, engage them in, cultural activities. But if you don't have that follow-up, if you're not building that ohana or building the family, you're not going to be able to keep those people engaged and continuing the process to build themselves up.
I believe that in different areas of the world, probably things are being viewed differently. Like if you do science communicating in the United States and if you do versus in Kosovo, it's a little bit different. And this has to do with culture, with religion, how people view science. And talking from my own experience, being here in Kosovo and starting out in science communication and bringing out the public, I am a young person and I'm also a female in a 95% dominated Muslim country. And yeah, oftentimes I get judged probably, or maybe people see me as somebody young and maybe not very experienced. But it's also very important that whatever we're doing is also coming from a younger generation itself, because setting a role model for somebody, I think it's very important, and that will play a huge role in keeping them, because they are gonna see you go up and you're doing great things, and they will just believe that if you do that, why can't them? And you're showing live evidence that everybody can do great things, and you're being a role model for other people. You are not only inspiring them, but then you're engaging them, you're encouraging them to work with you, to collaborate with you. And I was very glad when Raja and I met and he told me about SIP, and I immediately thought about high school students here. And I was very glad that 4 girls, young ladies from Kosovo, were able to participate in the SIP at UC Santa Cruz for 2 months. And that's great, because now they have been so inspired and have had such a great experience at UC Santa Cruz that they're thinking a lot bigger. They're thinking about their career paths. They're thinking about following their dreams, maybe things that they hadn't considered just being here in Kosovo, because it can be very discouraging when you don't have a lead, when you don't have a role model. And I think it's great to set role models and then have the support, of course, like building the family and keeping them together. And all of this, will just make magic.
I want to turn it over to the audience, Raja, but I want to build on Pran's point, really important point about role models. And so a role model isn't just someone you see doing it, because it's easy to look at Pran and think, oh, she's brilliant. I can't ever be her, even if I'm a young woman in Kosovo. And so part of the important part of the research mentor relationship is explicitly demystifying the process of research and explicitly acknowledging the steps and skills it took you to get there, as well as the difficulties you faced. Your own personal struggle is very informative for students. It not only makes you a real person who is accessible to them, it also demonstrates to them clearly that you can make it, and B, it is possible to that you are not, you're not flawless, you don't have all the answers. And that's incredibly important for building that trust in that relationship. Because if they trust you, then you have just such extraordinary ability to bring a student into a context and keep them there if it's something they choose to.
You guys can see our, oh, sorry, Amber, go ahead, please.
Oh, I just wanted to quickly build on that. Maddie, like vulnerability is so important in the mentorship role, because it really does help to build that trust. And I feel like a lot of my colleagues don't necessarily have that experience. And so it is harder for some students to connect with our faculty and some of our other staff members, because they're unable to really like engage with them. They see them as these like mystical beings that are really untouchable and scary. But like they are humans who have flaws. And so being really vulnerable with the students that you're mentoring and showing them that you got here through a process and that you have vulnerabilities and you do have flaws is super important in that mentorship relationship.
What Amber is talking about and what Fran and Maddie have talked about is for a teacher to acknowledge when they don't know something, don't understand something, and very importantly, to acknowledge where the teacher was if they're teaching elementary school children, to go back to remembering where they were when they were in elementary school in terms of their understanding, acknowledging that they might have been confused or lost. That is so important. This removing the superhero status of the teacher and educator is so important. You can all see the beautiful audience in front of you, Brian, Amber, and Maddie. From where I stand, as old as the hills, they all look like high school students. I know they're all involved in college and high school teaching. So please don't all speak at once. Please, I'd love to hear from. Put up your hand, speak up. Love to engage you in this conversation. Anyone at all, please.
I'm Deepika from Urban Center, Bangalore. It's a school of K to 12. I'm really very connected to what you have spoken. And our school really is on this fundamental approach. And as you said, it's really difficult to come out from where we have come in and still not remove that superpower or something, or accessibility in the school level at first. That's the really crucial thing. And we've been trying You're failing, trying, failing, it goes on. I really appreciate Maggie, we should broaden that and serving the entire identity of the student, support, facilitate, bring our personal struggle. My question is, when you bring in that swimming pool, so how do we, why children are watching people do science, say online initially because you're doing it across, right?
It's been online.
Yeah. So how do this, I mean, it's coming from the struggle we face. I mean, I'm questioning this. How do we really say or get the feedback that the child is not feeling it's something, you know, I just can't comprehend. Because I just want, because I'm also trying to bring the it's really challenging.
I think the onus in a situation like that, where scientist is using a telescope and they're looking at something very detailed and abstract, the onus is on the scientist to explain it to the student. What we do with many of these sessions is we have some sessions where anyone can join, literally anyone, any age, anywhere in the world. Those are really challenging because you have to tailor an answer to each question, and there's not a particular level of there's not a single level of experience or understanding in the audience. So we love to do these dedicated sessions where we will work with a classroom or multiple classrooms of children of the same age, children from the same cultural background. But then what happens is the thing you're doing could be as technical as you like, but you know exactly who your target audience is, and it really becomes the scientist's, the narrator's job to break it down. And that's a skill in itself.
Exactly.
Being able to do the research, but to have the empathy to explain it to someone who doesn't have the background is something that is a very rare talent. And we're always looking for people who can do this well. The three people you see on the screen are, here because they're excellent at doing that. They can take themselves outside their own mindset and put themselves in the mindset of their target audience. And that's really the essence of being a teacher or mentor, is that empathy.
Yeah, and at this young age, they're able to do, I mean, I don't know, it's really awesome. And maybe young people can do better. That's a question in my mind.
I can't answer any questions about young people. Time is long.
I'm sorry, I'm just taking some more time.
No, it's very good. You're setting a wonderful standard by engaging. Thank you.
I'm just, when you said that, the follow-up question for when you said that you take out time, I mean, the team take out times to interact in smaller groups with some common background. There'll be a lot elaborate process which will help the child, the teacher, self-reflect. And to see from where am I coming? What is my goal? I mean, how do you, I mean, do you do that?
What happens organically? One of the things that happens, and Fran, Maddie, and Amber have been part of Shadow the Scientist session. So one of the things that happens all the time is we break it down into school subjects. If there's a particular aspect of chemistry, if there's a particular, we see something in the spectrum of a star. First of all, what is a spectrum? Every kid has seen a rainbow, especially if you live in Hawaii. You've seen a rainbow, right? So we have to connect things to everyday terms.
Exactly.
Fortunately, we live in a universe where the same physics that's going on in the Andromeda galaxy or in the Virgo cluster 50 million light years away is also happening in our lab. It's happening in our Earth's atmosphere. It's happening around us. That's an advantage we have. The same physics is having tangible effects around us. We have to connect to those things. We can't start out there. We have to start at home and then work our way to, whether it's microscopy like Fran is doing for her PhD thesis, or studying planets around other stars like Maddie's doing, or sending spacecraft into space like Amber is doing. Each of these is a very technical field, but they have their roots in elementary school subjects, not even high school, elementary school subjects, in the mathematics, the sciences that are taught at a foundational level. I firmly believe that these connections are there, and they just need to be elucidated in a way.
And it could be sustainable if we can connect it to our curriculum, because the teachers are overloaded already. I mean, our system is taking time to, MEP in some Karnataka, like they're thinking whether to really implement or not. But there are so many issues parallelly happening.
Yeah.
So teachers are really overloaded. And we are coming from a schooling which, you know what it was, like British style. I don't know, I don't want to comment on that way. But the point is, somewhere there's a huge gap. There's an intent, but can't be seen. The outcomes are really, So I want it to be sustainable if we can connect it to school curriculum. And how do we extend it to the fields of the rest of the terms of STEAM beyond astronomy?
We're working towards that. I mean, everyone is, not every kid is going to be interested in science. They shouldn't be. We don't, if the world was full of scientists, who would be doing the art, who would be doing the historical analysis of the world? We can't afford to live in a world where everyone works in one discipline. If you ask parents, that's what they'll have the world become, right? Every kid wants to become a doctor or a lawyer. Yes, please.
What you can't see, you can't be. As in, pure exposure does a huge amount of work for us. But then also, I think your point about, in the classroom, there is a huge gap between what science is taught to be and what science actually is. And so the ideal will be to get into the curriculum that's coming into the classrooms and make teachers aware of what it is to be a scientist, put it directly into the textbooks or into the lessons and labs of what it is to be a scientist. But students come into my classroom for Astronomy 101 in college, and they think science is a collection of facts. It absolutely isn't. And so that process of doing science makes it, I think, inherently so much more accessible. If you don't look at the story of science and see Einstein and see a bunch of other Newton, a bunch of other white European men from the past who were all brilliant and we thought they were doing it all by themselves. But if you break down science not into a single great man and into a single person doing that entire work by themselves and into just a body of facts that they just produced or memorized, but rather into the process, into the collaborative process, and into the people who did it, not just, the myth of a scientist as well. I think that goes huge lengths towards bringing it into the classroom in a way that makes it more accessible to students, because we can't go in and we can't change the curriculum for the entire world to be about how you do science. So for teachers, that is something you absolutely can be doing, is get into so Einstein made these discoveries. Who is he talking with? How did he learn these things? How did he make discoveries? Talk about the fact that Einstein was actually wrong about something, and he went back on it. He said, I was very wrong and very sorry. So demystifying process of doing science and making it okay to be vulnerable and be a person as well as a scientist, I think, is a huge step towards that in the classroom.
Einstein rejected quantum mechanics by saying, how can something so beautiful as the universe be governed by chance? He said, God does not play dice. Right? That was his famous objection to quantum mechanics. And I think Niels Bohr scolded him, saying, how dare you tell God what to do? So this was Einstein, sort of, as you say, made a mistake. Or he assumed the universe was static and he invented the cosmological constant. People make mistakes, and I think sometimes we learn as much from those mistakes as we do from successes. We do have a couple of hands up, one in the back first, and then we'll come to you, ma'am, in the front. Please go ahead.
I go ahead?
Yes, please.
Just thanks for the session, and I'm Yogesh Chingra from Heritage School and Gurgaon. I just wanted, and this idea of bringing research to high school students, I mean, it's really, and promoting that idea is really wonderful. And it's a multi-stage culmination of many skills, as you've talked about. Just wanted in terms of how do we, if you have ideas about our school implementing with our students, how do we take it ahead, and what's the process shadowing the scientists? Do we have any process which we start at our school and we associate with you and your team? Just wanted to know some of those steps to take it forward and create that environment in our school and give our students the opportunity.
Let me answer that question by asking you a question. Are you know Samir Arora, right?
Yes.
So we're going to be visiting your school on Monday, I think.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what we're going to talk about, is how we can get students involved. Part of it is having to make a choice of setting aside time where the student won't directly be working towards a curriculum that's connected to the board exam. That's a difficult choice to make, but it's a choice that there's only so many hours in the day for the students and the teachers. Are there particular points in the student's journey when it's not putting too much pressure on them to take them away from thinking about the board exam, and to instead think even bigger about, research in the world? Would love to have this conversation.
Because there are students who are interested. There are teachers also, because in our schools we have also international programs, and there are skills in which we can collaborate with our existing set. But this program, how to tie it up, that's something we would like to discuss it forward with. And also, I also wanted to check: do the students actually produce some kind of work by the end of this 8 weeks program, or is it supposed to be 8 weeks program?
We do produce work. It's open-ended research. So what we can guarantee is students will be embedded in the actual process of research. What we can't guarantee is if there's a particular discovery or finding. If that happens, it happens. But 8 weeks is a short amount of time in a researcher's life. It's a very short, researchers are used to measuring time in months or years, sometimes decades. 8 weeks is a short time. So to keep the authenticity of the process, we never promise a product or discovery at the end, but the possibility is there. And students can sometimes continue the work beyond the summer.
The mentorship is still available, and after those 8 weeks.
Beyond the mentor's schedule, the student's schedule, we want them to prioritize schoolwork, of course, when school is in session. Students end up as lead authors on posters at scientific conferences. They end up as co-authors on papers. Again, we can't guarantee this, but those are some of the positive outcomes that do happen in a significant fraction of the cases.
We would love to have that discussion.
Thank you. Let me go to you first, then I'll go to second row and then back to the first row in that order, please. Okay, and I have certainly seen you. This is wonderful. I'm so glad I was worried that it'll just be the four of us talking from the front. So it's good that you've changed that.
Last bencher, that's better.
Last benchers, absolutely. I was a last bencher all through high school, back bencher. So front bencher, you're next.
Thank you. Good morning. This was really a very insightful session and a lot of food for thought. Something Madeline spoke about was the steps, right? Not just the end result. So from the student side, like what were maybe a few of the first steps you guys took when you were 16, 17, 18 that led you on this journey? Because a lot of the times, we have the curriculum, we have like research opportunities that they can take advantage of. But what are the first few things, we can help our students do? Like, or what did you guys do that you felt helped you get on this path? Thank you.
One of the things that I did was I took as many hands-on opportunities that I could. I'm an engineer by trade, so I took all the leadership opportunities I could. I built electric cars. I did as much robotics as I could. I tried to immerse myself in STEM and STEAM and just try to learn everything. Just be that sponge. Try to get involved, see what you like and what you don't like. One of the things, even as an intern, as I went through my college career, I interned every single summer from the time I was after I finished my junior year of high school all the way till I graduated with my bachelor's degree. And every place I went to, I learned what I liked about that place and what I didn't like about that place, and what kind of career I saw myself doing. And my end goal was to be paid a comfortable salary and to play with other people's expensive toys. And so that's kind of where I set my goals up, and that's how I progressed through my career. But as a 15-year-old, I started interning at an observatory. I learned about data science. I learned different coding languages. Programming is never a bad place to start because it's useful in a number of fields, and it's definitely a good place to be is this something that's for me or is it not? And then from there you can pivot and you can learn more about yourself and your interests and what you're really excited about.
I can go next. For me, it was very interesting because one of the things that actually kept me going on and on was my own passion. I had this very flammable passion for science and astronomy, and the fact that I didn't have any role model, because we don't have astronomers in Kosovo, believe it or not. We don't have telescopes, we don't have observatories, we don't have departments or institutes that you can just go to and learn about astronomy or planetary science. So it's like I started from nothing. And at that time, I didn't even speak English. I didn't even have access to internet. It's like you're starting and you're loving something so much, but you're just by yourself. And that was the motivation, the love that I had for science that pushed me to break all of these boundaries, to learn English, to get access to internet, to connect with people around the world that share the same interest as me, which helped me a lot because by being in contact with them and building this large network, they were supplying me with equipment and opportunities and giving me access to things that I never had before. And then more I engaged with public and other young people, it also helped me build my own confidence. It helped me believe that this is something I can make. Although even my own parents were concerned because they were like, oh, what, you're not even gonna make a living in the future as an astronomer in Kosovo or a planetary scientist. But that changed later on by seeing the impact that I could make with just one small telescope and setting it up in the square of a city where hundreds of people would pass by and look at it and just be amazed with what they saw. To me, not only was that I could share that and teach them about something, but it was also a reflection to me that it helped me just build my confidence and encouraged me to pursue bigger steps, bigger dreams, and think bigger. And that was the reason why I decided that maybe I should pursue a degree and not just have this as a hobby, as a passion, but that I can have this as a career and be fully committed to science and also contribute to science, and at the same time keep inspiring other people. And that's why today I am a PhD student at University of California, and I am very thankful to so many people that were just supportive and encouraged me, and I hope to be able to do the same for so many other young people around the world.
I know we're at the end of the session here, so as people trickle out, I'll add my story quickly, is that I was given a chance. I was very afraid of research. I didn't know what it was, and so I didn't know how to get started. And so I emailed professors randomly in my home city, and one was willing to take me on, and that showed me that I was worth it. It showed me that I didn't know anything, but someone still gave me the time of their day. But the reason I knew how to email is really important. It's because my parents had gone to college before, and so they knew how that system worked. They didn't do research themselves, but they knew what we call the hidden curriculum, which is how to succeed in college that's not taught explicitly to students. It's the things that people who have been to college before, who've had family members or friends who've gone to college, they know because they've been through it. But the students coming in don't necessarily know. And so if a student was in a different position, if they didn't have a parent who said, go email a professor and go see if you can get some research, they would not have been in the same situation I was, which is why explicitly teaching the skills that it takes to succeed in college, or explicitly teaching the skills it takes to succeed in research, or even how to become a researcher, is really, really important.
Yeah, I would just like to add to that fact that's actually very important, having somebody else to maybe help you out. So in my case, here in Kosovo, I did my undergrad in the Department of Geography, and the curriculum is such as that you take classes, you have an exam, you don't do any research at all. And then the moment I got accepted at University of California, I didn't have the background. I didn't even know how to do research at all. It's like I'm starting my master's degree and I don't have any of that. And it was very, very challenging. So students coming from different areas of the world can be affected by the way where they grew up. Did they have access or not? Did they have any experience? Did they have anybody help them or teach them, or are they starting from scratch? I kind of started from scratch when I came here in California 3 years ago, and just within 3 years, I believe I was able to learn so much, because just having so many friends and professors and people that supported me, and that's just really great.
You know, we're on Indian stretchable time, so we're going to keep going till they throw us out of this room. We started late, so let's just keep going. I know you had your hand up next, and we'll go to you. I haven't forgotten you, young man, in the back bench there. But please take it away. And let's at least take your questions. That way, even if they throw us out of this room, we can keep the conversation going. And you know, let's take your questions first in order, and then we'll go into a discussion after that. Please.
Sure. So I'll just say one line. I think first, as a community of educators and parents, we have to bring out certain shackles. I've seen this. I've seen this. Children. Some teachers are children. So first, as grown-ups, we have to reach out to the children and search mindset, like everything can be connected to why, how, and what, like, why. So my question is,
see the three subjects again: engineering, law. Yeah. Think of how strange the world would be if it were run by doctors, engineers, and lawyers.
Research scientist, I chose to get after this one. And everybody was essentially research, but we didn't have the basic guts to ask why. Whatever was told to them, they didn't understand to me. So and fortunately, I did make a job so that once it was completely, I went to starting 6 years like, this is not research, this is not research. And that's why I thought I think I was blessed, but I was going to the subject. I would have life, everything straight from all of this diet from what's asking the question by. I'm looking to do see so the first we need to learn teach ourselves before we go out and the younger generation. My question was, like I said, most parents don't want their children and JE. However, actually, there are few students who would love to not give the best condition of acts and do something outside. So the shadowing program that you see in Santa Cruz is offering, can children individually join this program, and if they want to, how to approach it, how to do it?
We have a website. Yes, anyone can sign up. We have open sessions. We have dedicated sessions. If their school wanted to sign up, that would be one process. If they wanted to join one of the open sessions, it would be a different process. But it's open to all. The open sessions are really open to the world. It's free. They're online. All we're looking for is desire, engagement, passion, and we get that in spades from students around the world.
So students are, if I go and check out this website, all the details I'll get.
Yeah, join our mailing list. That would be you'll get emails every time there's an event coming up.
Sure, thank you so much.
Sure, ma'am, please go ahead. Yeah,
I think most of the questions have been already asked, so it's got copy paste most of them. But just a follow-up question on that. Planetary sciences is a very niche area, and not in detail a part of the school curriculum.
Not just that, I mean, it becomes difficult for the educators, like Mom just said, that you need to be able to bring that kind of a value in class on these kind of topics. So is it a kind of a program for teachers as well? Where support system of schools join this program. So sustaining that interest, sustaining that love for the entire thing, is there a kind of a program for that as well?
I wouldn't be able to say that for planetary science. Brand may know, but I will say that these disciplines are interdisciplinary. What you're using in planetary science is engineering,
Right.
physics, chemistry, sometimes biology information. There's certainly mathematics, statistics. It's how they're packaged together.
Yeah.
Planetary science is named after the target of study,
Right.
planets,
Right.
in the solar system and in other systems of planets, exoplanetary systems. What techniques you use to study them involve all of these things. Physics, mathematics, chemistry are definitely part of the mix. There is a growing subject called astrobiology, which is trying to understand life beyond the Earth. There are many opportunities for teachers to get engaged. I know Rina Payton in EPS runs a wonderful program there. The National Science Foundation in the US has wonderful programs. There's a GEODS program. I'm only aware of a small number of these. There's many opportunities for teachers. And you know, everyone recognizes that when you train a teacher or you give a teacher an experience, the translation to students is a huge multiplier. That's always there. I didn't want to forget the backbencher. Please, sir, sorry to be calling you a backbencher, but you called yourself that. So go ahead, please.
My name is Shomabrata Mukherjee. I'm from Mumbai. I'm blessed to be a part of this conversation. We're talking about research, and that too at the high school level. And now you see, we start research at a pretty late in our career, in our lives. Talking about high school, I personally feel that it should start in the middle school, even in the primary. It's a mindset that we talk about, right? So we kind of, and there's a constant struggle between completing the portion and when do we have time. And that happens because we see research and investigation as a separate entity from our curriculum. It could be kind of incorporated. So we are kind of made it a process, and it's a part of our school goal that students from grade 3 onwards will have to kind of write research, but in a diluted form in the lower years. My question to you is very simple. How do you take this forward, and how do we connect with you? Is there a spark that we could connect with?
Join us, take one of our brochures, please join us. I've seen remarkable examples of elementary school teachers do things that have completely blown my mind. I'll give you a simple example. Yes, please, you have a question, sir, after that. I'll just give you one anecdote about an elementary school teacher explaining to students, this was what happened to be in that classroom, explaining what pi is, you know, the Greek letter pi. Okay, so it's a ratio, that's how far a wheel rolls once you know its height. Okay, so you have the diameter, measure how far it rolls, take a ratio, you get close to pi, right? Because one full circle is 2 pi r, the height of a wheel is 2r. They started with that, and then they said, okay, take a wheel, they cut out a wheel on a piece of paper, and they said, can you cut it up into pizza slices, very thin slices, because then lots of people are going to eat these pizza slices, and before you have people eat those pizza slices, you can arrange those slices so it's back in a circle, but you could also arrange it in a clever way where every alternating slice has the crust of the pizza on one side, and then on the other side, and then on one side. And then if you make your slices thin enough, you've got a rectangle, right? Because on one side, you've got half the crust, so pi r. On this other side of the rectangle is r. So the area of the circle becomes pi r squared from that. So they were teaching calculus and limits in this manner. It was a brilliant example, just a very simple example, but a brilliant example of this. There's another way to do this, by the way, if you want to say it.
I'd love to be a part of what you're doing, and all those that are free, I love to avail of all of it.
Of course, no. Look at it this way, all of our programming is free. Even the fee-based ones, we offer need-based scholarships. So we make it free for the students who can't afford it.
Yeah.
I'll give you another example of experiential learning. And my daughter experienced this, so I saw this with a parent's eyes and I was blown away by it. They would study a famous person every month and they would color pictures of that famous person, whether it was Mother Teresa or Mozart. So the month they were studying Renaissance artists, they were studying Michelangelo. So I came home and said, I want to go to the 16th chapel. I said, I haven't taken you to the first 15. What's the 16th chapel? She was meaning the Sistine Chapel, of course. But what the teacher had them do that day was, instead of coloring in, as an elementary school, you color in a drawing of Michelangelo. Instead of having them sit at their tables and color in, a picture of David or Pieta, she had pasted those pictures to the underside of the desk, so the kids had to lie on the ground and use the crayon overhead in the same way that Michelangelo had painted the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. It's a simple act of experiential learning. And I just remember these two examples from my.
And we have got researchers done across the globe, one from Subrata Mitra, talking about kids can teach themselves in groups without any adult intervention. It's a constant struggle as school leaders. I'm a school principal. So how to kind of convince the building where we have teachers who kind of are so focused in completing the portion. And it's to be honest, they have to do that as well. But how do we kind of build this as a part of our culture is what's so important.
It has to be a balance. It has to be a balance. The board exams are not going to go away. But giving students, allowing them the space, it has to be a balance. Yes, ma'am. They're our most active outreach partners. They're here because of that, not for any other reasons, right? My Zoom call died, so I'm not seeing them on my screen. But Maddie and Amber and because most active outreach collaborators, and that's why they're here. They're brilliant scientists, each of them in their own right. It is really, really nice to see. Yes, together, please.
Thank you so much, Professor Raja, Pen, Medellin, and Sarah. And I would like to echo the sentiments shared by the previous speaker to say you're an inspiration to the many girls out there, which formulates the basis of my question. We often grapple or have challenges in terms of getting female students, even if the opportunities are shared across group, which I can say it's a equal footing ground. Both males and females will share the opportunity in a classroom block, and you have 90% of male students taking that opportunity, and in some instances 0% of the female students taking those opportunities. So from where I'm sitting at, and taking a leaf from your lived experiences, what are the conversations that we can do as educators, as counselors, with the female students in our schools? And the second part of the second question that I would have, when I looked at the topic of this session, which is inclined towards access. And I always say, whenever these conversations are here, we're glad that as Africa, we are here, and also our voice is being heard, so that we are aligned as the world is moving. So what is the clarion call that you can give to us as educators? I'm glad my colleague Emmanuel is here to say what can we do? What should we start to do now, so that as Africa and the nationalities that we are coming from, we are not behind when others are moving ahead. Thank you.
I'm not qualified to comment on how to become a part of that conversation. I think Pran has probably smart things to say about that. But with regard to gender in the classroom, the answer is complicated but simple. There's a concept called science identity, and that's how much you feel like a scientist, self-reported. And this goes down in girls as young as 13 years old. And so it isn't starting to address it in the high school classroom because it's already too late. It's starting to address it in the middle school and even elementary school classrooms. Having role models makes a big difference, but a huge part of what makes a difference is how you assess in a classroom setting. So there's fascinating studies that as educators, I'm sure you all are familiar with about how stereotype threat, the idea of how people of your certain identity perform in a classroom that threatens students. They think, oh, a girl's not very good at math. And then when they're reminded of that fact, they do worse on math tests. Assessments also can be more formative rather than summative, meaning assess along the way instead of in a big test all at the end. Because a formative assessment is something like checking in daily with small questions to make sure the students are learning and understanding, relying on a sort of projects where they can demonstrate their understanding in a way where they're very, very good at it. You have a very artistic student, then they can demonstrate through something artistic that they have understood the concept of, I don't know, stellar motion or something like that. And when you try to put that student, it's like Einstein's quote of asking a fish to climb a tree. Of course, a fish can't climb a tree. And so we're asking many fish to be climbing trees, and we have giant summative assessments that are just what is everything you learned and regurgitate that on a test. We also know it's not a very good measure of student learning. And the most alarming thing is that given other types of assessments throughout the year or other types of assignments where students can demonstrate their learning, those differences that we see in terms of performance of men and women, of students of color, at least in the United States, students of color and Anglo-American students, those go away. And the other key there is active learning. Active learning is not sitting down and talking at someone like I'm doing you now. This is not a good example of active learning, but active learning is activities and even just questions that ask students to engage, reflect on knowledge, connect with existing things they know, and to make connections in the classroom. Active learning is phenomenally shown to reduce pretty much all the differences that we see in terms of gender, race, and other identities and accessibility in classrooms.
To add on to that, hands-on learning, super important, building on what Maddie says. And sometimes if you're still not getting the results you want, sometimes just separating out into smaller groups or separating the girls out so that they can thrive on their own in their own group, separating the girls and boys, sometimes that helps. It really depends on the classroom and depends on the students. Giving the girls a space to shine sometimes does help, where they will step out and step up, and they want to be in that leadership position. They just can't when they're in a group with boys. So I've seen both situations work. And then to build on that, also there's a group called What Schools Could Be. They have a lot of really interesting ways of teaching that's very different from what is currently the norm, and it could help to give you some ideas on how to make your diversify the classroom and kind of build up that education and stay ahead of the curve even, and help your students get there.
Just wanted to add something she said, I really appreciate you have brought in. One thing other was to bring in the context where the science operates, like history of science and various other things. So science discoveries also don't happen. Maybe quite many happen by accident, but many come in with the need, the need to bring in, like so many things like cholera or other things were discovered because of the context it prevailed in.
This has been an amazing discussion. I see some hands in the back, and I know not to ignore backbenchers. So you, sir, on my right first, and then we'll take a question from.
So, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
So, thank you so much for enlightening our minds regarding this technology and critical thinking. So, I have 2 questions in mind. I hope you'll answer them. So, first question is that, if you know the example of India, I've read a beautiful quote, minds are like parachutes. They open and they work. major population is in the areas. How to get this system there? People are always very hard to sell this like family basic education. So the first question, how like as an educator we can do that in that context? Is there any support system coming from the government or any support system from like government institutions or organizations or such things? Space. The second question is that stakeholders in school institutions, example of and the system in such a way that the stakeholders are platform that we are in the system.
We take the next question and we can continue this discussion beyond. Go ahead.
We were discussing experience. So this is not the total, and I just heard all the discussions. And sir has already asked the questions to what are the different types of supports. So I am a mentor of change also for Niti Aayog and working with the 3 school in Jharkhand. And working with the students, when I'm working with the students are so creative and so open-minded. So I just provided a freedom to choose the topics and then convert the topic into a story, write a story, and shoot as a film. And so that in school hall to all the students and engage all the students, attract all the students towards you and start learning by experiencing. Not only science subject, in all the literature also, you can just do this types of work. Okay? And my research paper is already published in the science reporters regarding this one. So this one is a very good way of teaching and learning with a very low cost of money. So government of India also provided school education and digital payment. So all the school can participate in these programs and then take the support from government of India also. So this one is a very good way for teachers and students, and expert also can participate in this type of program. So every school some and this program is going on. So teachers will take part in this one. So this one is a good initiative by the government of India. I am just appreciating and facilitating perhaps students and students just with their own participating in this type of program. And within itself, in Jharkhand, students are getting 3 international awards in the science film festival and 2 national awards in the science film festivals, and all the students taken from the science, literatures, and mathematics subjects from class 6 to 12. So this one is a very wonderful thing, or a way to teach and learn from experiencing.
Thank you. I know we're keeping people from the open plenary that started at 10. Thank you for being an amazing audience. And Maddie, thank you for the amazing panelists. We could have been here all day and we would have lots to talk about. But thank you for taking time out of your very early morning run, out of your late evening, Maddie, out of your early evening, and outside. We could have gone on and on if we didn't have other things running in parallel here. So thank you. I can't wait to see each of you in person again soon. But I'll give you Hawaii next in a couple of months. I'll look you up. So take care. Bye. Thank you to the organizers. Thanks for setting up the AV and making it work. Oh, okay, of course, can do that.
Thank you so much for the session.
You're very welcome.
We are from Jannabai Nursery School, Mumbai.
Oh, fantastic.
The Is it okay? We can get Madeline's email ID also later on. Like I can write.
I'll check with her just to make sure that
Yeah.
that I know she's a PhD student and is swamped with work. I just want to make sure. Please send it to me and I'll send it along to her. Of course.
And that happens.
Of course. Thank you very much. So we are coming to Mumbai. We are coming to Mumbai. From here, we're going to Bangalore and then we'll be in Mumbai.
Did we get unhooked?
I think so. Thank you. It was nice seeing you and being in this panel discussion with you. You were amazing.
Thank
Guys,
you.
You're so cool.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your expertise too, both of you.
Oh.
Mm.
Okay, I think I'm gonna head out, but I hope you guys have a great evening.
Thank
Mm.
you. Take care.
Bye.